Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however and wherever you may be listening. Welcome to our episode special here. We got I'd say it's our post All-Star break slash pre-trade deadline special episode. And I'm going to start off this episode with some big news. We finally, after much discussion and much indecisiveness, I believe is the word, um, we have finally come up with a new podcast name. Of course, who knows? We could change it again, but we're hoping to stick with this, and hopefully it will stick, and it will work to our benefit for the algorithms that the YouTube algorithms and other platforms we may use this on. So without further ado, drum roll, our new podcast name. We are the We Are Family Pittsburgh Sports Podcast. Now, we add the Pittsburgh Sports Podcast in at the end because we want to make it clear, just because we have a Pirates theme name doesn't mean we are just going to talk Pirates all the time. Of course, during this time of year, there's really not much else to talk about right now. But once we get into football season, we'll be heavy into football season. So that we just want to make that clear. But we're hoping to, unite that song and unite that Pirates theme and make this podcast have a good name, because the BCS podcast was just not working. It was a good trial, a good start, but we're really looking for something that's creative and that sticks. And not only does it a Pirates theme and a baseball theme name, it also represents kind of what the three of us have become, kind of a little family. We always are talking on texting on Snapchat and talking about sports, and it represents our sports communication family at Point Park, all the people we've met. And so we're hoping that, our podcast gets spread throughout the Point Park community and throughout Pittsburgh. That's the hope. And then hopefully eventually we'll expand even further beyond that. So the Pirates, moving on to our episode here, the Pirates went on a run. They finally went on a run. And by the way, this is Pirate Peyton, Jake Bell to my left, Nate Shivens below me here. I don't know if it comes up that way on the video, but
well, for me, I'm on like the top
as always,
right.
it's the
Peyton,
three
you're
of us.
low, and Nate's on the left. So
Okay, yeah. So who
it's
knows
all
which
good
way
though.
it's going to
Yeah,
be seen? We don't even
you're all
know.
good.
Excuse me. But we were just, it was like win to lose one, lose to win one, win to lose two. It was just, we really didn't know where this team stood. They had a great series against the Brewers after that kind of disappointing homestand. They had a good series, won 2 out of 3 from Milwaukee. You don't usually get that from the Pirates over the last several years. Since like 2010. And then we swept the White Sox. The White Sox, I didn't realize how bad they were until we actually played them. But they're still a Major League Baseball team. And the Pirates definitely are not known for sweeping teams this year. And that was a big accomplishment to get on a 4-game winning streak going into the break and being at 500. But then you think, okay, well, their schedule upcoming gets tougher. But they come out with 2 statement wins against the Philadelphia Phillies. I was there last night. I had the Renegade dog. I don't know if you two had it, but nope. Excellent. I recommend. It's expensive, so I would only get it like once a year, but like really, really good. But anyway, they fall today because O'Neal Cruz didn't catch the baseball. And we didn't hit anyway, but a really, really good series. We take the season series from the crosstown rivals. So now, what I want to ask you guys is, now we're a game over 500. We're a half game back of the wild card. There's about 3 teams tied for that third wild card spot, plus us, half a game back. Then you have St. Louis like a game ahead for like the second spot. So it's jam-packed. Now, as long as the Pirates don't collapse in these next 6 games, because there's about 6 or 7 games until the trade deadline, are we buyers? Like, based on what we've heard from Ben Sherrington, are we going to be aggressive buyers? Or are we going to be kind of uh mid buyers, like we maybe get a couple, cheap pieces, or are we kind of in between that? And are there any pieces that the Pirates are going to sell? I mean, we've talked a lot about this, but now we're approaching the deadline. I mean, I think things are coming are going to have to become a bit more clear pretty soon.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the Pirates are kind of in between right now in terms of buying. I think they are going to buy. It's just I don't think it's going to be an all-out pursuit of, the best available talent, offensively relative to the market. I think it's going to be somewhere in between. We've already seen that the Pirates and the Marlins have had exploratory talks on Jazz Chisholm. They had kind of the same thing with Taylor Ward, although that kind of got blown up. It wasn't really, it was just, talks, normal talks during the trade deadline between different teams. And that kind of got blown up on Pirates Twitter. But I think they are going to I think they are going to buy. I think this, if any series indicate that, this series showed that this team's pitching is deeper than anyone could have imagined coming into the season. And the offense is not good enough as currently stands. We saw that today in the final game of the series against the Phillies. Though it did show up the first two games for the most part, but everyone knows that and I think we were only like a bat away, to be honest with you, just because that would put us in the maybe slightly below average tier of offenses. And with the pitching we're going to be getting throughout the rest of the season, if it continues with, Skeens, Keller, if Jones comes back, Luis Ortiz has been so good for this team.
Unbelievable.
And he
Mhm.
showed like on Saturday, just awesome. I mean, against the Phillies, such a tough lineup. I do think it's going to be definitely we're going to be buyers, but we could also be sellers in that, like, I'm actually hoping for this, that we somehow can, like, offload, like, a Martin Perez or something, just because he's not,
That's going to be
at
tough with
this
how he's pitched
it's
lately.
gonna be tough. Like, I'm hoping or get him to the bullpen. We just have like, it's crazy now. Who'd have thought coming into the season, we have so many pitchers right now. Realistically, if everyone's healthy, which, knock on wood, but usually that's not how it goes in baseball or any sport. But if everyone's healthy, we have 8 starting caliber pitchers for 5 or maybe 6 rotation spots if we choose to go with a 6-man rotation. And I think Martin Perez should be the odd man out. He has performed the worst by far out of any of them. And when his location's not, absolutely perfect, he gives up a ton of hard contact, a ton of runs. And, could you put him in the bullpen? Yes, but I feel like there's better lefty options we have right now in the bullpen. So if we could like try to sell off a Martin Perez or something like that, just because we have such a plethora of pitchers and I mean, there is the kind of joke, in Pittsburgh about with the Pirates fans. Welcome to Pittsburgh, cash considerations. But that could be like the best we would get for a Martin Perez if we traded him. But
I
I
mean,
think
we'd be dumping a couple million because we paid 8 million for Perez, and that looks like
right,
an awful, awful contract.
yeah, he's like the third highest Pirate in terms of earning money this year. It's crazy looking back, but uh, any way you can. Or maybe they do decide to keep him just because of the contract, or maybe they just DFA him or something. But I think it's going to be for the most part a completely buying, and the only selling I could see is if you could trade Martin Perez for like anything, just any team that would be willing. Pretty unlikely, but that's where I see the Pirates right now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. What I think they should do, I know I've probably said this on here a lot of times. I've said this to you guys. I think they should buy and sell. I mean, I'm not completely sold that this is a World Series team. I don't think any of us are. But this is a
Mhm.
team that easily can make the playoffs if they can end the season the right way. And I think that if you do whatever you can to offload a Martin Perez, that would be great. I don't think they would trade a guy like Chapman despite him having half a year left, just because I think the Pirates like the idea of having a flamethrower in late innings, especially whenever it comes playoff time, just to kind of electrify the crowd and everything, even though it's kind of a long way away still. But I still think that Chapman would stay, even though I think they'll offload some contracts that are going to be expiring after the season. And I think they should really manage this deadline based on years of control. I think getting rentals is just going to be a waste. I don't think that the Pirates, like, once they start trading these prospects, I don't think it should be for a rental while we're a team that's struggling to make a wild card right now. Or not struggling, but we're kind of on the fringe there. I mean, if we're 10 games over 500, that's a different story, but we're not. And I just don't think that we should trade, like, I mean, we're not going to trade significant prospects for a rental, but like, just I still feel like our farm system is so deep that like, compared to other teams, it would be a big time prospect. So it's just, to me, I think at the deadline they really need to focus on years of control. I think that's the biggest thing. Don't try to outbid in free agency the next offseason if you don't have to, because we're not going to be able to, no matter what the situation is. I just would rather see us just have guys that are going to be on the team next year, just so we can just not have to worry too much about free agency. Like, again, that could be an issue. So I think that's how we should manage the deadline. I think that's what they'll do. So I guess we'll see what happens, though.
I agree with you, Jake, about the Reynolds thing. Like, unless there's a prospect they really see no future with, and they could get a veteran that could be valuable to the team, you don't give up a prospect for a guy who you're not going to not going to have next year, because we really don't know. I mean, this team is very, it's hard to say whether they'll be in the playoffs or not, and it's hard to say if if they're for real. There's still a lot of, I'd say the pretenders are starting to fade, but it's still tough to say. I mean, there's 5 teams right now that are really in this wild card race for those last 2 spots. Now, a follow-up to that, I think these next 6 games, I mean, if you really think about it, we're still at 500, which is where we needed to be to have any thought of being in it. Now, if the Pirates go on a run here, because we're facing Arizona and St. Louis, those are arguably the 2 biggest teams we're going to have to compete for this wild card. If you do really, really, really well, like if you go 5-1 or something, and during that stretch, which I don't think they do, I think they're going to be 500 in this next stretch, and they'll be about where they are now, maybe a half game back. But if they are 5-1 or 6-0 or go on a crazy run, does that change? Does that make the front office more aggressive or not really? Do you think they stick to who they're going to go after for a reasonable price? Or do they go after a Chisholm for some extra prospects, or I don't know, a Brent Rooker?
I don't think the next 6 games, like if we go 3-3, like at worst, like say that's like the baseline, I don't think like a 5-1 would really have much of a difference on what Ben Cherington or what that front office is thinking, because either way you're still going to be right in it for the wild card. I think anyone they would be talking to right now would be anyone. If we went 5-1, they'd still be talking to. I don't think they would really be talking to anybody else. I think a sign that they'd really be in on this year and next year. Obviously, we like a Jazz Chisholm who has extra years of control. That would be something that would show that we are, like I mentioned, that we are in it for this year and next year, and that Ben Cherington and this front office is serious about winning this year. I think it's kind of for Ben Cherington, it's kind of like he's always like a really calculated guy. We know that from his time with Boston and elsewhere, but I think now he's trying to weigh, do I go, with a kind of quote unquote big splash with maybe a Jazz Chisholm, a Brent Rooker, which I would have to give up more for, but would be better and bigger impacts for this team's offense? Or do I play it safe with maybe a lesser player, which, Taylor Ward, let's be honest, is, especially right now in his he's on a big slump right now, and maybe a Tommy Pham or something, which I don't really see any rentals for the Pirates, like you guys mentioned. I just it doesn't really make any sense. This year is not going to be the year we have the best chance to win the World Series. It's going to be in years to come. So that's probably when a rental would be enticing for Ben Cherington. But I don't really see, back to your question, Payne. If they go 5-1, it's a difference of 2 games. I think 3-3 probably is the most likely scenario here. I would love to see us win this series in St. Louis and then we always struggle in Arizona too. That's like one of the places. I know Milwaukee, we were there so much more, but I feel like Arizona, we don't really do too well either there. So if we can maybe take 2 or 3 from the Cardinals, and then get a game in Arizona or even 2, that would be really good. But I don't think, a bad, 3-3 or even a 2-4 would really impact his decision making that much.
Now, Jake Bell, if on the opposite end of that, if they for some reason just get on a major slump here and are like lose 5 of their next 6 or 6 of their next or 5 of their next 7 or 6 of their next 7, like, I mean, do we just sit still and do nothing then, or would we actually sell pieces?
So in all honesty, I think either way, the plan is going to be relatively similar. If they do go on a big time slump, the only players I see them trading are guys with expiring contracts, guys like Chapman. We already mentioned Martin
Right.
Perez. They want to unload Tellez, they can, but to me, it's just the front office doesn't seem like they act on emotion rather than have a strategic approach. Like if we look back at the Huntington days, you could tell it was
Right.
more of an emotional way that he kind of went towards the deadline. I mean, whenever we went on that big stretch in 2018, despite you knowing we were supposed to be rebuilding and the roster showed signs of decline, he still went after a Chris Archer. I mean, he did the same thing in 2011. Finally, we weren't in the basement. Even though we weren't that good, we weren't in the basement. He goes after these Reynolds, which kind of, even though guys like Derek Lee did pretty well, but it just kind of didn't make sense. I think Charrington's going to go with a more strategic approach. I think he knows this team. I think he understands that this is the year where we're supposed to win 80 plus games. And I think he's very well aware of that. And I don't think he's just going to let a week stretch really determine how he's going to go after this deadline. I think he already has a plan in mind. What is that going to be? I don't know. I know we can speculate all we want, but we really don't know until the day comes. So I just don't think it's going to change, at least drastically. So.
And that's a great point about Huntington too, because when the last time he made a trade deadline strategy based on emotion, we went on that 11-game winning streak before the All-Star break. Then we went all in on Chris Archer, and then it went all the way downhill, and he lost his job. And that was the end of the Clint Hurdle era. So you have to be very, very careful sometimes. Now, moving on to the rest of baseball and all the big names that are out there, and we're going to get to that. We have a little bit of a segment. We worked on some rankings for some guys who maybe and definitely will be traded. We'll get to that in a minute. But throughout the league, who do you guys expect to be the most aggressive? Because obviously you expect teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees to be really aggressive. And I guess this year you can include the Phillies and the Orioles maybe, but the Orioles have built from the ground up. But any teams out there that like maybe are under the radar to be really, really aggressive this year and make some splash moves and make some headlines on July 30th?
I'm not sure. It's really interesting. I mean, the teams you mentioned, I feel like will make splash. I think the Dodgers certainly will be looking for a lot of starting pitching help with. I mean, their injured list is a starting 5 that would like any team would take right now. It's crazy, but I think they will be very aggressive. I think the Orioles will also be aggressive with starting pitching. Yankees bullpen. I guess one under the radar team maybe they've already started. I guess the Kansas City Royals. I'm not sure. But I don't think they really are going to go. But if they wanted to add like some offense to that team, they certainly could this year, especially with the great pitching they've had this year. They already got Hunter Harvey, but I don't really see them being very aggressive this year. Um, I guess you could say that now an interesting team is the Boston Red Sox right now because they are, as it stands right now, either in or right there with Kansas City for that final wild card in the AL. And there's been a lot of stirring in Boston and a lot of anger towards ownership in the front office about not spending as much as they could right now and not being aggressive enough. There was a report that Alex Cora was like pleading with management, or not with management, with the front office to add some pieces. They could like shock the world. I don't think it's going to happen, but they could shock the world and they could add to their starting rotation and get a Garrett Crochet. I don't think it's likely, but
They
a
need
team like
bats.
well, I mean, their offense has been pretty
I feel
good
like.
so far. I mean, Devers and Tyler O'Neill's been great, but they could certainly use a bat as well. They've gotten a lot of contributions from rookies, which who knows if that's gonna be sustainable. But I don't really think there's too many like under the radar teams. But in terms of like selling, I think the Texas Rangers could be a really aggressive sell, and the Tampa Bay Rays at this deadline because the Rays are always willing to do anything that would give them the best chance to compete. We've seen that, and they with the way they do with their bullpen and develop pitchers, I think they're completely fine with trading some bullpen pieces and getting something back, and then developing other bullpen pieces. And then the Rangers have like several free agents at the end of this year. If they fall out of it, if Chris Young, their general manager, decides to sell, they'd be really intriguing. And they got Max Scherzer and Nathan Eovaldi, uh, two of the better pitchers in the sport when healthy. So I guess there might be more aggressive selling. It's definitely going to be a seller's market this year, but we'll see. But I think the Dodgers probably will be the most aggressive, and maybe the Yankees and Orioles.
Well, a team I have under the radar that I think is going to be a big time buyer. I I oddly think it's going to be the Diamondbacks just because they're a team that is not afraid to make trades. We've seen it with the Gurriel for Varsho swap. I think they're doing pretty well in that regard. After an 85 win season a few years ago, they went on and traded for a bunch of guys. It didn't quite work out, but it was still an aggressive move. I think they're a young, hungry team, and I think they realize that. And with them now being very well in the playoff hunt, especially losing the World Series last year, I think they want to make a statement here. Obviously, they're dealing with injuries. I don't know if he's back, but I know Gallen unfortunately has been hurt for a bit, and they're still in this with Corbin Carroll not having a good year. So I really think that they could easily go for one of the better, if not one of the best bats on the market. And obviously they still have a good core with Ketel Marte and Christian Walker. Those guys have been very consistent all year. But if they get one of the big time pitchers and one of the big time hitters in the market, I don't see that as much of a shocker as people may see that as. So I guess we'll see what happens, but I think they're definitely under the radar. And like you mentioned, Nate, I think the Rays are going to be big time sellers. I already heard a report that they're willing to deal anyone. I think they realize their time's up. I mean, the Orioles have, in my opinion, easily cemented themselves as the best team in the American League East. I know the Yankees have that talent with Soto and Judge, but I just think the Orioles are just more deep of a team. I think their lineup has less holes on the roster. And then you got a team like the Red Sox who have very well exceeded expectations. I did not think they'd be as good as they are. And even though the Blue Jays, I think will be sellers too, I think the Rays just realized that fourth is not going to be good enough. And I think they're going to be big time sellers. And as reports state, I think that very well could be the case.
Well, for me, the team that this has been one of the most consistent teams in baseball for several years now. They're always in it. 7 or 8 consecutive pennant appearances in a row. They were aggressive this offseason, and the Jose Abreu thing that they signed him the year before, that didn't work out. Their starting pitching hasn't worked out the way they wanted it to. Their bullpen's been even a little lackluster. Their bullpen's very talented, but Brian Abreu, Presley haven't been as great behind Hader. And that's so obviously I'm talking about the Houston Astros. They have to realize, look, we still have our core players. We made it 7 or 8 years in a row to the pennant. We have to keep going for it as long as we have these guys and as long as they stay in their prime. And I think just based on what they did last offseason, getting Hader like that was one of the more surprising moves. I think they are going to continue to surprise us, add to their rotation. And I think there's a lot of first base. I'm going to get to this in our next segment. There's a lot of guys who are first basemen who were like, they're big names. We doubt they're going to get traded. My theory is the Astros are going to make an offer that a certain team can't refuse. And they're going to get their big time first baseman and add to that lineup. And I think that is going to be the shocker of the deadline. That is my big call. But I'm going to get to that in our next segment. So Jake and I and Nate we have a list of 24 players, 12 who we feel are maybe going to get traded, 12 who we feel that are definitely gone. And for the 12 that are definitely gone, we all have picked different teams we think best fit these players. And we're going to go around here and talk about these players. First, though, we have a little side list. There's a bunch of position players because this, in terms of the most interesting and most dominant players on the trade market, it's mainly pitching this year. And I think a lot of times it usually is, but the names we have here, lots and lots of pitching out there, and teams are very pitcher hungry right now. But I do want to mention these 7 position players we have written down. They'd be smaller acquisitions, but could be huge. Kevin Pillar, center fielder. There's a lot of teams, Pirates, Orioles, Dodgers, Phillies. They need a center fielder. Kevin Pillar has been a huge part of that Angels offense. He'd be a complete rental, but he's a guy that I could see like being on the Braves too. Jesse Winker, corner outfielder. He's had a revived season with the Nationals. JJ Bleday, he's been up and down throughout his career. He's had an up and down year this year, but he's under control, pretty good defensively. I could see teams taking a chance on him, but you might have to spend a lot because he's under control. His value isn't very high, but the fact that he's under control could make that difficult. Taylor Ward, I think there's a very high chance that the Pirates get him, especially because his trade value is going down because he's been awful, but I still think he's a very good hitter. He's been off for the last 2 months. Another guy, Justin Turner, definitely not in his prime anymore, but he's a guy you can put at the corner positions, bring him off the bench. He's been there, done that in the postseason. Another Angel, Luis Rengifo. I think I'm saying that right. And then another interesting target, catcher Elias Diaz. There aren't a lot of catchers on the market this trade deadline, but I'd say he would be the main guy. He was an all-star last year, having a decent year. He's not anything special, but I know that if the Pirates could use him, I know Bart's been good, but I don't know how long that's going to last. But I want to get into the main. Any thoughts on those 7 guys? Anything that pops out to you guys? Or else I'll get to the definitely.
Yeah, just a couple things. It's like that you point out Elias Diaz because he is I feel like nobody's really talked about him as a free agent to be, and as a trade candidate. But he's been a pretty good offensive catcher for a couple seasons now, a few seasons with the Rockies. Obviously, Coors Field is probably aiding to some of that, but he would be an interesting trade target for some teams that are in need of some catching depth for sure, or even a starting catcher right now.
Well, you could even go to Diaz's backup and Jacob Stallings. I mean, he's been a solid backup with the bat. He's honestly, I could be wrong, but the last time I checked, his OPS was actually better than Diaz, even though Diaz has been the better overall hitter. But Stallings, I mean, for a team that desperately needs a catcher, like you said, that would be a good option too, and that would be a very cheap option if they were to go to that.
Okay, gentlemen. So now let's go into our definitely list and what we all think, the 3 of us individually think where their best fit. So at number 12, we have Tanner Scott from the Miami Marlins. Probably should be ranked a little higher. He's been excellent for them. One of the few bright spots for the Marlins. I have him going to the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles need to get another closer. I know they have Craig Kimbrell, but Craig Kimbrell is old, and you saw how he fell apart in the playoffs last year. So they need an insurance policy. I don't know if he automatically becomes the closer, and I don't know if it's going to be him that they get, but the Orioles are a young men driven team. They build from the ground up. And is Tanner young? I think he's young. I think I saw his age.
He's youngish. He should have years of control too, right?
That's what I'm saying. I think because Marlins, they normally have young guys. How old is he? 1994.
Yeah. He's
okay. So he's not that young, but still, young enough. But anyway, I have him going to the Orioles.
Yeah, I think that's where I had him going too. It makes complete sense for the Orioles. Their bullpen has kind of been ravaged a little bit with obviously Felix Bautista. I think he's out for the season. Just a crushing blow for Baltimore's pen. Obviously, they have Yennier Cano, who's been awesome, and they have Craig Kimbrell, who's actually been like better than people thought. But I think everybody, Orioles fans certainly want a bullpen piece, and Tanner Scott as a lefty would really complement the righties, Craig Kimbrell and Yennier Cano at the back end of that pen.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I kind of have sort of a 180. As long as they have years of control left, I actually said the Pirates just because the Pirates have been linked to a lot of Marlins guys. And to shore up the bullpen, I mean, they might not be confident in David Bednar if he stops going on this pretty good stretch he's been on. Chapman's been shaky, and you never know. I don't know if they'd be comfortable with Holderman and Majinski and Nicholas in a more bigger role come closer to the playoffs. So I think that would be interesting. I kind of have that as a wild card, but I could see that as a possibility just because the Pirates have been linked to the Marlins.
That is a shocker. I do think we add to the bullpen, but not that big of a piece.
Yeah, I guess it just
That's
depends
my
on
thing.
how much we would have to give up for sure.
Well,
But
plus
they're
he's
Right.
bullpen
actually
heavy, so.
yeah, he's actually a free agent at the end of the year.
Oh, he
So
will be okay.
um
I
yeah,
thought he had
because
years in control. That's on
Oh,
me, but
oh,
yeah,
and guess
and
what?
probably
Orioles
not.
might not be.
I
I
just
don't
thought of this
know.
too.
Might
Yeah.
not be the best fit.
Tanner Scott came up and through the majors with the Orioles,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's kind of another connection too.
Yeah.
Oh,
He pitched for
No,
them a
that's probably
couple
a better
years.
guess. No, I thought he had years of control. I'm like, if he did, I think that would be a perfect thing. But no, I mean, that makes a lot more sense though, for sure.
okay. Moving on to number 11, Zach Eflin. He has I think $18 million on his contract next year, but he's been very, very solid this year. His ERA is like in the low fours, but that he's his ERA. I think he's pitched better than his ERA indicates based on his WHIP. Because he has such a hefty contract, the Rays are going to offload it. And who's a team that has taken on big contracts, and that's the New York Mets. They need. I don't know if Eflin's really a true number one, and I don't think the Mets want to give up uh, a lot for a true number one. But Eflin easily comes in as a number two for them. They need starting pitching. You can't rely on just the guys they have. They're not really deep enough. I think the Mets, Scott, whatever his name is, their owner, Steve Cohen. He's not afraid to take on big contracts. So I have Zach Eflin to the Mets.
Yeah, I have Zach Eflin going to the Dodgers. Like you mentioned about contracts, his contract's fairly hefty, but I think the Dodgers are a nice fit just because he's not a number one or even a number two really, but a good depth piece. And also, I know the contract doesn't kind of work with Milwaukee, but the Brewers also, I think they're still. I know they got Savali, but I think they're still going to be going after starting pitching pretty hard. I know the contracts where it's at right now, and the Brewers being a smaller market team, but if the Brewers get desperate, if they see, it is a dire weakness, not a dire weakness, but it's certainly a weakness for this Brewers team. So I can see him going probably Dodgers, in my opinion.
Well, I have Eflin going to the Astros just because the rotation's random, for lack of better term. So I think that's a possibility. I think the Astros definitely want to get a sure veteran that's going to be at least provide good, if not above average results for them. So I think that could be a possibility. So
Okay. Now, next we have at 10, Kyle Finnegan. And I know Kyle Finnegan has years of control. So I originally had Finnegan going to the Yankees and Scott going to the Orioles. But I think I'm going to switch that. I think Finnegan might actually make more sense. Oh, it's Finnegan. He's a righty. But they're just going to look for guys. I don't think they care righty or lefty. I'm going to say Finnegan to the Orioles. I'm going to take back. I'm actually going to say Tanner Scott to the Yankees. That's my one change. So I'm going Finnegan to the Orioles.
Yeah,
I'm changing that.
Okay. I'm going to go Finnegan. Actually, I think he's going to go to the Yankees. I mean, I think actually I agree with you, Payne. I think it might be interchangeable. Obviously, the Yankees do have a good amount of righties in their bullpen, but Finnegan, I think the Yankees are desperate for bullpen help, so Finnegan could definitely be a piece that they would be looking at.
Yeah, I have Finnegan going to the Dodgers. I mean, it just to me it makes sense. Really good reliever team that wants guys that could at least finish a game for their underrated but pretty good rotation. So I think the Dodgers could definitely make a push for that.
Number 9, Yusei Kikuchi. Yusei, is it Yusei or Yusai? I don't even know.
Could go
I
either
think it's
way, I
just
assume.
Yusei. Okay. Yusei Kikuchi with the Blue Jays. ERA a little high, but again, kind of a guy. His numbers, if you look at his strikeouts and his whip, he's had a better year than the ERA indicates. I have Yusei Kikuchi. He's kind of a he's been with Seattle, Toronto. Toronto, I guess, is kind of a big market, but he just feels he feels like a Minnesota Twin to me. I don't know why. Really, I don't have a reason. I know the Twins probably need a starter. Their offense is pretty solid, but I think they'll be in search of a guy behind Lopez. So I have Kikuchi to the Twins.
Yeah, for Kikuchi, I have him either going to the Twins, like you mentioned, or Cleveland. I think Cleveland also is another team who really wants some starting pitching, so I think he certainly could be a fit there. And like you mentioned, paid Minnesota, though Minnesota has a little bit more starter depth, but I could see either one of them grabbing Yusei Kikuchi.
So are you saying which one are you? Because I'm writing down all of you, so that way,
I'm gonna say Cleveland.
if any of us get it right, just I got to keep track of this. If any of it happens, that actually happens. Uh, so yeah, you and Jake, go ahead.
No, that's a good call, Payne. But yeah, no, I think Kikuchi. I have him as going to the Brewers. They also have a really weird rotation, even though it's been surprisingly pretty good. But I don't think they're gonna see that as sustainable. And Kikuchi's a veteran. He's had some pretty good seasons. He was an all-star. Why not take him on and just have some good production there?
Okay, next up, number 8, Carlos Estevez. He is a free agent after next year. So he's getting paid $6.5 million. So you'll have to pay like $2 to $3 million to have him for a rental. The Mets, I know they said they'd get Zach Eflin, but I think they're going to be even in more desperate need for bullpen because their bullpen has been a disaster, a complete disaster lately. So, because Elias Diaz hasn't been as good. Carlos Estevez to the Mets, assuming the Mets are going to be aggressive, and I think they will, because they're the Mets.
Yeah, I like that one. That's a good call, Peyton. I think he's going to go to the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks have been ravaged by injuries, mostly their starting rotation. So I'm assuming that's Rodriguez and Montgomery and Merrill Kelly will come back healthy. So, but their bullpen has been very not good for them this year, and I think they are going to be a contender all the way for sure. So I think he makes sense as a Arizona Diamondback.
I actually also have him as a Met just because of the inconsistencies with Edwin Diaz. I feel like they want a guy who has been able to close games and be effective in that role just in case he struggles a little more. So
All right, give me 1 second here. I realize because I'm writing these down. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna while I'm writing these down, I'm gonna I'm gonna announce the next player. It's at number 7. It's Tyler Anderson. One of you two go first while I'm writing this down here.
all unit.
Oh, geez, Tyler Anderson. I think he is a candidate to go back to the Dodgers. So I'm gonna say Dodgers.
I actually have him in a deal that also brings Estevez to the Mets. That Anderson also has as a Met. You know, I think it would just make sense. I mean, if they see Anderson as one of the better pitchers on the market, why not grab both instead of reaching out to another team, having to go through different prospects that the other team may favor over another. I think that would just make more sense for the Mets, who are kind of in an interesting timeline for sure. So
So I feel pretty confident in this one. Anderson has always pitched like on the West Coast, Colorado, San Francisco, Dodgers, now the Angels. He's under contract for next year. He's going to want to stay on the West Coast. And I think, I think the Angels probably will be respectful of that, possibly. And, a team that always seems to make moves. And this is kind of it for them. Like, they have the talent on offense. They need to make the playoffs this year, or some people are getting fired. And that's the San Diego Padres. And they need help in that rotation. And they don't really have a lefty in their rotation, like a good lefty. Darvish is hurt. Musgrove is hurt. Tyler Anderson stays on the West Coast and goes to the Padres. Let's keep this because I'm still writing this down. Let's keep this the same order. Jazz Chisholm.
Yeah, I know there's been talks about the Pirates. I think he's going to go to the Yankees. I think the Yankees are a good fit for Jazz Chisholm. I think in the end they're going to outbid the Pirates.
I think a team will outbid him for the Pirates, but I think it'll be interdivision and a team that's very close within the Pirates. I have him going to the Cardinals. I think that they see this as a chance to upgrade on their offense when they've had some inconsistencies. And I know that they have some very good defensive center fielders, but I feel like they want to grab a bat just to, because you can't have enough good hitters. And I think that would be, while he's not great, I mean, he's definitely a decent enough hitter this year so far. So.
Okay. I have Chisholm. I'm with Nate. I have Chisholm going to the Yankees. I think he's been most highly linked to the Mariners. The thing with the Mariners, I think we'll talk about them later. I have him going to the Yankees, not the Mariners. But the Mariners always do weird shit, like with their trading. They always make the weirdest trades, and they've been on such a downtrend. I don't know if they're going to be like huge buyers, but at the same, because and their general manager said, well, we're more concerned. He said something weird. I don't know when this was. I think his name's Dipoto or whatever. He said we're more interested in buying for the future instead of winning now when they were that close to the playoffs. So their management is just wonky to me. So I'm gonna say he goes to the Yankees. Chisholm. I just can't trust the Mariners to do stuff. And then the next player on our list is let's keep the same order because I'm messing this up here. We can actually figure this out later too. Eric Fetty. Where's he going? White Sox.
Yeah, now I'm starting to kind of backtrack on I actually agree with you, Peyton, before about Tyler Anderson. That makes more sense just because I had Fetty going to the Padres, but it does make more sense. So I haven't gone to the Padres, but in hindsight, it kind of does make more sense if they got a lefty. But I'm going to stick with Eric Fetty. I think the Padres certainly are going to look for a rotation piece at the deadline. So.
Okay.
I have him going to the Braves just because I feel like they'd want a guy just to shore up that rotation, just so they're not throwing out some guy they're calling up in AAA come playoff time. So I think that would be the move for them.
So you have what did you say, Jake?
I have Fetty going to the Braves.
The Braves. Or no, you're over here. Braves, and then you had him going to the Padres. Okay. All right. So next player. Oh, wait, I didn't say where he was going. I have Fetty going to the Astros. And I talked about them being super aggressive. Fetty is under contract, pretty cheap, $7.5 million next year. And they'll have to pay some of that $7.5 million this year, not a whole lot. And I think they're going to be aggressive. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the Astros have the farm system to do it, but I'm going with them. And then our next guy is he's been on and off throughout the years, but had a dominant year with the Tigers. Jack Flaherty. I have him going to the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers. You know what? I'm gonna wait on what I was gonna say. Let Nate, you go ahead because I want to save that for later.
Yeah, I have Flaherty going to the Braves, similar to kind of what Jake was saying about Atlanta. They could use some starting pitching depth. I mean, either Fetty or Flaherty, kind of interchangeable, but Fetty has an extra year of control. But I think Flaherty will go to the Atlanta Braves.
I actually have him going to the Diamondbacks just because, like I said, I think they'll be aggressive. They could use some more starting pitching, just like a bunch of teams, but I think especially the Diamondbacks, who it feels like they have three of their qualified starting pitchers on the IL. So it's like, figure that would make a lot of sense for them. Why not get a strikeout guy in Flaherty?
All right, now we're getting to the meat of things. Our top three: Brent Rooker, Oakland Athletics. There's a chance he doesn't get traded, but we were comfortable enough to put him in our top 12 of definitelys. Where does Brent Rooker, the big time slugger, made a name for himself, a late bloomer? Where does Brent Rooker go? I have him, and I think this is going to be a surprise. I have him going to the Boston Red Sox. Because if you look at that wild card race, the Royals, young team, still building, they've slowly declined. The Red Sox have slowly inched their way up. They need another bat. I just looking at their roster, they need another big time bat to support Raffy Devers. Their strength has been their rotation. They may add to the rotation, but their strength has been their rotation, their bullpen. They need a big time bat. And I think if they are aggressive enough to get a Brent Rooker, they will secure a wild card spot.
Yeah, so I'm going with kind of one that has kind of been thrown out there a lot, the Phillies. Now I know he's more of the Phillies would love to play him at DH, and obviously Schwarber is going to fit that. He's not a great outfield defender. They are probably looking for a center fielder as well as an upgrade over Johan Rojas, but I think Brent Rooker makes a lot of sense to the Phillies, especially in their win now mode right now, if they want to go all in on somebody who should fetch a large return from the A's.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with the kind of boring answer. I think he will be a Philly just because, as we said before, no one's going to want to face Skeens, Jones, and Keller in a wild card, and no one's going to want to face that lineup of the Phillies with Brent Rooker in it come playoff time. And I think the Phillies are willing to sacrifice in the fielding department to have the best offense in the playoffs. So,
All right, number two, Luis Robert. Now, this is my big. You guys mentioned the Phillies. This is where I have the Phillies making their move at the poker table per se. I just see, like, sometimes you close your eyes and you can just see a player in that uniform. Maybe it's because I saw it on Twitter, but I just see Luis. They need center field so bad, so badly. And I think he's out of all the teams that would be interested in him, he's the best fit by far there. And I think the Phillies, we saw in the last series, their bullpen's very good, but they don't have a guy who's comfortable in the closer role. So I think the Phillies make a huge trade, get Luis Robert and Michael Kopech from the White Sox. They have the farm system to do it. I'm calling that as a combined strict trade. But Luis Robert to the Phillies for me.
Yeah, I like that, Payne. That actually it does make a lot of sense as a center fielder for the Phillies. But I'm going to go with another NL East team. I'm going to go with the Atlanta Braves. Now I know they have a center fielder, Michael Harris, right now. They haven't been, they haven't gone past the Phillies for the past 2 years in the playoffs. They haven't gone as far as they wanted to. Their outfield situation is really shaky right now with Ronald Acuna Jr. obviously out for the season. I think you can move Robert to a corner spot. I think he's better suited as a corner outfielder. And I think the Braves make a lot of sense. They have to give up a lot. I don't know if their farm system can handle it, but I like the Braves as a fit for Luis Robert.
this won't make sense initially, but when we get to number one, it will. I have Robert actually going to the Orioles. I know it seems weird because Cedric Mullins, he's been a staple, even though he struggled offensively. Their corner outfield spots look good and their DH should be fine. But I think that the Orioles are going to want to make a splash here. And with a guy with years of control that's relatively young, I think that's a big time Orioles pick. And they have the farm system to do so. I mean, it might take a lot, but I think they're going to be willing to trade some guys that they don't see as someone that can be on the MLB team and produce at a high level, like they've seen with some other guys that they brought up. So,
And number one, Jake had to spoil it. Garrett Crochet. And from what I've heard, the Dodgers are going to make a big push for him. But Garrett Crochet is arguably the prized possession of this trade deadline. And I just don't know. The Dodgers have given up so many prospects in the past. If you look at the prospect rankings in terms of all the organizations, Dodgers are middle of the pack. The Orioles have all the prospects in the world. There are so many good prospects on that Orioles organization. They could even give the White Sox, a Cedric Mullins in return or something like that. Or, something so they can have some big leaguers on that team. I don't know. But I have Garrett Crochet going to the Orioles. The Orioles outbid the Dodgers. Now, the thing is, though, the Orioles, like we've said, they haven't made a lot of splash trades because they build from the ground up. But at some point, I feel like you got to start being aggressive, because you're not, just because you have a great organization of players and great players on your roster doesn't mean you're going to be in this position every year. And I think they have to realize they have to be aggressive, and they have the prospects to do it. So I'm saying Crochet to the Orioles.
Yeah, this one's tough for me because I think I already have like two pitchers going to the Dodgers. I don't want to overload. And everybody's talking about the Dodgers. I just kind of want to kind of get away from that, go with something more unique. But I'm gonna go with the San Diego Padres. Now I know what you're saying. They can't have
That'd
any
be a Padres move.
it would be.
Yeah,
They
no
have the number 8
Yeah.
prospect in baseball too.
Yeah, they do have, and the White Sox will be asking, and we know that they will. Ethan Salas, I think is probably what you were mentioning, Jake. He's just a really good catcher. It's one of those things where the Padres do need a starter. They don't have any lefties that I know of. I think starting, he would be a really good fit. He wouldn't be cheap, but Preller doesn't do cheap. He goes all in, and I think he will do that again. I think it's actually going to be a relatively quiet trade deadline for the Padres, except for Garrett Crochet.
Well, I kind of
It ain't
spoil it.
quiet if you get Garrett Crochet.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I kind of spoiled it like you mentioned, but I have Luis Robert and Garrett Crochet in the biggest trade deadline deal since arguably the Max Scherzer and Trey Turner going to the Dodgers. And I have both Robert and Crochet Robert and Crochet going to the Orioles. And I know that it's going to take a haul. I think the Orioles are prepared for that. And while they have a lot of outfield depth, I think while he's been struggling, Colton Cowser would be an interesting option just because of how young he is to go to the White Sox for him to start their rebuild as an MLB player. That's also going to be around for a long time because I feel like Heston Kjerstad is going to be one of their outfielders of the future. I think he's better than Cowser long term. I think that will work better for them. Will that happen? I don't know. Maybe they like Cowser better. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But I think the Orioles make one of the biggest moves we've ever seen and grab both young,
I mean,
really
you're
good
talking
players.
Max Scherzer, Trey Turner. That would be Juan Soto, Josh Bell level.
That's very true. Yeah, I'm just talking
Honestly,
about two.
bigger
I'm just
than
talking about
that.
like two of like the best players on the market
Yeah.
going is what I'm kind of referring to. But yeah, no, I mean I think that would be crazy, and I think that could happen.
So let's recap. So Nate has Crochet going to the Padres, Robert going to Atlanta, Rooker going to the Phillies, Jack Flaherty going to the Braves, Eric Fetty going to the Padres. Did I get that right? So you have Fetty and Crochet going to the Padres.
Yeah.
Boy, would that be something. I don't think they have the prospects to do it. Chisholm, I forget. I missed that. Where did you guys? You had the Yankees.
Yeah.
Okay. And you had who'd you have for Anderson?
Dodgers.
And then Estevez, you had Arizona, Kikuchi, Cleveland, Finnegan to the Yankees, Eflin to the Mets, and then we both kind of switched, right? Scott's going to go to we have it, yeah. Scott to the Orioles.
Yeah.
And then Jake has Crochet and Robert to Baltimore, Rooker to Philly, Flaherty to Arizona. That's your sneaky team. Fetty to Atlanta. Chisholm. Where do you have Chisholm?
Cardinals.
Cardinals. Anderson and Estevez to the Mets. Kikuchi to the Brewers. Finnegan to the Dodgers. Eflin to the Astros. And you had Tanner Scott to the Pirates, but I think you kind of
Now
took
that
that
I
back
kind of regret that now, knowing that he's going to be gone. But
You
we
want
didn't think
to
we were
put
going to get Chapman,
another
so
team?
I'm not going to hold it against them with the relief pitchers.
All right. Okay, now, to our maybe list. I'm gonna list these 9 players. We're gonna talk about them briefly. We have a bunch of Rays and a bunch of Rangers on this list. So we're gonna talk about those 2. We already talked a little bit. We're gonna touch on this. At number 12, we had Pete Fairbanks on our maybe list. Been the closer there for a while now. They'd get a decent return for him. This is a big long shot because he was just signed. And I don't think the Cubs are going to be big sellers, but we put Cody Bellinger on the list. Then we get into the Rangers. John Gray, former Rocky, been a stud for the Rangers. Frankie Montas from the Reds, and there was just a report that said it's looking like the Reds are going to sell their expiring contracts. Or Montas has another year of control. He's a little expensive. He's had average production. Then we have Max Scherzer, who is doesn't have much left in the tank, but he is still very effective. Chris Bassett, another expensive piece from Toronto, has another year left. They're going to be trying to look for dumping that contract. He hasn't been all that great this year, been okay. Nathan Eovaldi, we know what he's about, what he did last year. The Rangers are sellers. He'll be one of the premier starting pitchers on the market. Randy Arozarena, I mean, he is the face of that Rays franchise. He's had kind of a down year, but if the Rays are really going to sell, there's a chance he goes. Another Ray, Isaac Paredes. We'll get into our top 3 because these top 3 are huge names, but those 9, we have a lot of Rays and a lot of Rangers there. Any potential fits you guys see there? And we have Blue Jays. Mainly, it's basically Blue Jays, Rangers, Rays. And we have 1 Red and 1 Cub there. Out of those 3 teams, who do you think is most likely going to sell? Or you could pick 2 of the whatever you guys think. And then any potential fits that stands out to you from those list of players.
Yeah, so I think all three of those teams are going to be selling, I think, to varying degrees. I think I've been thinking about this. I think the Rangers are going to be shedding some of their expiring contracts rather than Eovaldi, who has another year of control after this year, because I do think they see themselves as, competing for a championship next year if they're selling this year. Kind of like the Blue Jays, but the Rangers already have their World Series, right? So the Blue Jays might even be with more urgency. I think the Rays are going to sell a lot of bullpen pieces. I think one of Pete Fairbanks or Jason Adam or one of those, Colin Poche, one of those at least is going to go to the Mets. I know we've touched on the Mets a little bit of their bullpen needs. I don't think the Mets are going to really be that aggressive, believe it or not, this trade deadline, just because we thought they were going to be sellers for such a long time. But I think they're going to get one of those Rays relievers, maybe Fairbanks, who would be the biggest name of the 3 at the closer for the Rays. And in terms of Arozarena, I think the Rays, that might be something the Rays hold off on until maybe the offseason, just because he's having a down year right now. Maybe, the rest of the year he can start heating up, and then if they want to trade him, his value is higher then. And Paredes would be, I don't think he's going to be traded, but if he does, watch out for the Mariners, because I think they're going to be really aggressive, and they're going to be looking for, first base, second base, third base, outfield. They really
Every position in their lineup.
basically every
That's
position.
what the Mariners need.
Yeah, basically every
Yeah.
position for Seattle. So
Yeah, I'm not gonna go too much in the Rays. I was just told they were going to sell. I think, and from my understanding, from what reports were saying, guys like Paredes and Rosarena have been thrown around. So I guess we'll see what happens there. Actually, for Paredes, I think it would be interesting, even though I'm down on them, you guys already know. I think it would be interesting for him to go to the Royals. They're a young team. Paredes is in his age 25 season. I don't know if he's 26 yet. He's young as well. I think that would fit perfectly into their kind of plan right now, even though, they went for some older pieces through free agency in the rotation, but I think Paredes would work really well on that team and in that lineup. And I see the Blue Jays as a team that we'll see what they unload offensively, just because some guys have been struggling, as you guys know, but I've been told that starting pitching is a position that they are willing to listen and look for offers on. And guys I wrote down were guys like Kevin Gausman, Yusei Kikuchi, and Chris Bassett. I think we already mentioned, yeah, we did already mention Kikuchi, but I think those are guys that can go. I mean, Barrios, I don't know how much longer he has on his contract. That would be interesting. I don't think they're going to unload all these guys, but they're definitely a team to watch to trade some of their veteran starting pitchers that we thought honestly would be pitching playoff games for them. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
I think all three teams are going to try and offload their expensive contracts that are expiring in the next year or so. I think one of those teams, at least though, is gonna be like, hell with it. We're gonna just offload everybody. I think the Rays could potentially do that. And because the Rays are driven by getting big time prospects, right? Like how the Orioles did it. I don't think they need an Oriole type rebuild. I think the Blue Jays are going to kind of think that way too. I think the Rangers are definitely just going to offload. I don't think they're going to completely sell, but I think the Blue Jays are going to go in, and I'm kind of leading into something. They're going to go in just trying to offload some big contracts that are expiring, but may end up doing more than some would think. And that's where I want to get into our top three. And I want to know where you guys think these guys would go. Okay, all right. So here's our top three. Mason Miller, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Tariq Skubal, guys that probably won't get offload, but if they did, oh my gosh, the amount of prospects you could get back. Mason Miller, I have going to the Phillies. If that were to happen, if they don't get like another big time reliever, Vlad, and this is where I'm leading. I think out of these three guys, I actually think Vlad Guerrero does get traded. I think this is what I talked about earlier in the podcast. I think the Houston Astros are going to make an offer that they can't refuse. They want that first base spot filled, and they get Vlad Guerrero Jr. And he's imagine him in that dome, in that fun hitting ballpark. It'd be something. And then Tariq Skubal, I highly doubt he gets traded. I just said the Dodgers. I really don't know there.
Yeah, so I agree. I think there's very little chance the Tigers trade Tariq Skubal at the deadline, like you mentioned, Peyton. Mason Miller, same. I just don't. I think the A's are going to be looking for a lot, based on the fact that their recent trades, a lot of them haven't netted the top prospects that they would have liked, like for Matt Olson, for Matt Chapman, for some of those trades. So I think they're going to hold on to Mason Miller at least for this deadline. Maybe they trade him in the offseason, who knows? But I think Vlad Jr. is the most likely to be traded. I'm kind of like 50-50 in if he does get traded or not, just because, he's a Canada guy, with his father playing for the Expos a little bit. He grew up in Canada. He recently said he would love to stay in Toronto, but obviously that doesn't really have any impact on what the team's going to do. But just kind of, if he does go, I think the Mariners are going to really try to entice the Blue Jays. I think they're going to offer a lot. They have a decent farm system that they can trade from, and they are desperate. We saw they are putting Ty France on waivers. He hasn't been good. It's been a black hole at first base. It's been a black hole at almost every position, except for, I guess, maybe shortstop with J.P. Crawford and catcher. So I think they are going to go all in for Vlad, but I still think it's like 50-50 if the Blue Jays actually would make that deal.
Yeah, so honestly, Peyton, we have the same exact answers. I have Mason Miller.
Really?
Yeah, I have Mason Miller also being a Philly. Is just that's just what's been linked. If that were to happen, Phillies are gonna make a move for him. I do have Guerrero Jr. as an Astro, and this is why. We know the Astros are gonna be trying to get to the championship series again, like they've been for the last however many years. As a team with that caliber, you can't have John Singleton as your first base. You need that first base spot for a
John
premier
Singleton.
hitter. You know what I mean? And it's going to be Vlad
Yeah.
Guerrero Jr. And that's if they were to acquire him. And Tariq Skubal, it's just going to be a boring answer. I think Dodgers would make a move, especially if they miss out on Crochet. So that's kind of what I have going for that.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think the Astros will be also looking for some first base help. I wonder, I'm not sure where that's going to come in, but it could set up for an interesting bidding war. I was talking with these two about this between the Mariners and the Astros. Personally, I think the Mariners might be more desperate just because their offense all around them is a lot worse than the Astros. But I think it could go either way. That could be really exciting near the waning hours of the deadline for sure.
And looking at these other players, um, and this is where I'm leaning into. Like, I think there's some teams, specifically the Guardians, the Brewers, and the Braves. I think they make some moves, maybe get some of these players like maybe like a John Gray or a Frankie Montas to help out the rotation, or one of these bats that we mentioned earlier. But I think those maybe the Braves might go all in because they're the Braves, but their whole team's kind of having a down year, and they don't have a whole lot of missing pieces. It's just like we need to get those pieces to start going in the right direction. So I don't think the Braves make a whole ton of moves. I think they can comfortably, although they did, Ozzy Albies just got hurt. He's going to be out like 2 months. I think the Braves kind of stay quiet for that reason, from what I just explained. But I think the Guardians and the Brewers kind of stay quiet. And I could be completely wrong about this, but both of those teams have overachieved by a mile this year. I mean, we didn't expect these teams to even be playoff teams, and especially the Brewers, there's a chance they could fade, but the Orioles or the Guardians look pretty much, there's no way they're not going to make the playoffs, and they have overachieved by a mile. And both of those teams have the top 3 or top 5 prospects or prospect systems, minor league systems in all of baseball. And the fact that they're kind of a year or two early in being really, really good, I don't think they're going to sell all those prospects yet to get big players. So I think the Guardians and the Brewers and the Braves, but I think the Guardians and the Brewers kind of stay quiet a little bit. They kind of just say, hey, we're playing well and we're not going to do too much to shake things up. We have a great prospect system. We're just going to keep things how they've been going. So I want to hear your thoughts. Are there any teams to you guys that they might just kind of sit on their hands and just keep their rosters how they are for now?
Yeah, so I have 5, and there could be more here. I actually have a lot of teams that might just be standing pat. The biggest one for me is the Giants. I don't know if the Giants do anything. I'm not sure. They might get a bullpen piece, but they are in a position where they're like 4 games out of the wild card right now. They're kind of where the Reds are, who have indicated they're going to sell off some of their veteran rotation and bullpen pieces with no years of control, and the Cubs, who have indicated that they might sell if they have anything to sell. So I think the Giants might just stay pat. They have Robbie Ray coming back. They have Alex Cobb coming back, hopefully pretty soon, and their rotation could get a lot better. So I think the Giants might stand pat. The Mets, I think too. I don't think they get to go too crazy, which is kind of surprising maybe because Steve Cohen has gone crazy in some aspects in terms of the spending with the Mets since he's been there. But I think the Mets, they might kind of similar to the Giants, they might get a bullpen piece. I could see them getting Tampa Bay reliever or a reliever, one of the better relievers on the market. The Royals too, after getting Hunter Harvey, they might add a bat, maybe a third baseman like Jake was mentioning earlier. They might be in on Paredes. Who knows? I mean, I don't think, but I think they stay pat overall. The
That's
Cubs,
another team. I just want to say that's another team, the
yeah,
Royals. They're way ahead of schedule. They lost
right,
100 games last year. So are they really going to be that aggressive?
yeah, that's
I mean, if they
like
missed the playoffs, they still had a great year for
right.
where they were last year.
Yeah, no doubt. And they got both their two best pitchers, well, two of their better pitchers, Waka and Lugo, under control for next year, and then Lugo the year after, and then Reagan's for several years. So I don't think the Royals do too much right now. The Cubs, they can't really do anything. Who are they going to sell unless they want to sell Ian Happ or want to sell, someone and start maybe tearing it down? But I don't see that. Bellinger's going to be hurt probably. I don't see that. And the Cardinals, I think the Cardinals, similar to the Mets and Giants, might add bullpen. They might get a bat. Their offense has been really bad, but they have a lot of position players right now and not as many spots. So it'll be interesting to see where. And they have guys in the minors who they can bring up. Jordan Walker, who's been in the minors all year now. So I think those five teams, for me, I think the Guardians might be a little bit more aggressive, and the Brewers might be too for starting pitching than people think. But those five for me, I think might stand pat. And then who knows with the Pirates? I have no idea to be honest. So
I think the Pirates. It depends what happened. I think, like we talked about earlier, they kind of know what they're going to do. They may make a slight adjustment to their strategy, but we kind of know what they're going to do unless something dramatic happens over the next week. The Cardinals are so interesting because we didn't expect them to be any good, and yet here they are. They always seem to find a way. I think with how their organization expects to win every year, even though they had a horrible year last year. I think they're somewhat aggressive. I don't think they're overly aggressive, but I do think they're somewhat aggressive because this might be with how old they're. But they do have a really good prospects system too. So the Cardinals are in a weird spot. But go ahead, Jake.
So I'm gonna go against logic just because I feel like, especially in sport of baseball, logic doesn't matter because if it does, Julio Rodriguez would still be amazing, and he hasn't been. So I'm gonna go with a very bold take, probably a dumb take, but I'm gonna say the Padres don't go full in on this deadline. Maybe they'll get some, okay player, but I just don't see them. I see them staying pat for the most part. It's just their prospects are so depleted. And while they have a top 10 prospect in Salas, I don't really know what else they have. And I just don't think they're going to outbid for teams that desperately need bats, especially bats, because a lot of
And pitch
the
and
teams,
starting
yeah,
pitching.
pitching too, just because the bats have regressed heavily this year compared to previous years in the entire MLB. I just don't think they're going to outbid teams. And for a player like Taylor Ward, he's not an upgrade to the Padres. I'm sorry. He would be an upgrade to other teams. He wouldn't be
Yeah.
an upgrade to the Padres. I don't think they're going to be willing, unless they want to have him as a bench player. But I don't see that happening. I don't think they would acquire Ward to just have him ride the bench. It's just, to me, I think staying pat could be something they do. It's kind of something that the Tigers did whenever they went on that spending spree back whenever their owner was still alive. And they kind of just stayed pat for a year, and that actually benefited them just having that full off season of chemistry with this team. So I have that as a bold take, but I think that could happen.
I think the thing with the Padres is, 2 years ago they were in the NLCS. They had Juan Soto. Their offense is pretty good. Like
Mm.
their offense is not the issue. It's their pitching that just hasn't. There's just not enough depth there with injuries and whatnot. But the thing with the Padres is that, so I think they could get some starting pitching, and I think they need to. And the reason I don't see them exactly standing pat, they may not be crazy aggressive, but they have to make some moves because I think their GM is in trouble if they don't win this year. Because 2 years ago, like I said, the expectations were high and they failed last year. And if you have another 500 season and don't make the playoffs in a weak NL, I mean, you switched managers. Like at some point, the blame has to go to higher levels of this organization. And I always like the Padres. I'm kind of rooting for the Padres and the Pirates to get in, because they just have so many fun offensive players. But this has to be the year for them. But to your point, Jake, they've offloaded so many prospects. It's like how much can they do? So they may be handcuffed a little. So yeah, guys, great talk. Whoever's listening, go in the comments. Any bold predictions you have for this trade deadline? If you get it right, I don't know, maybe we'll send you like a box of chocolates or something. Go in the comments. Give us some bold predictions. Give us your opinions. But to end our show, we're gonna go to Jake Bell for some special baseball trivia. Hopefully, me and Nate aren't complete idiots this time. So, Jake Bell, it's all yours.
No, I wouldn't call you guys complete idiots, but if you guys don't get one of the three, I might have to use that term. So there's some pressure on you guys, but no, this is not gonna be hard. There's no Alan Hansons, there's no John Van Benschoten. Every player on this list was a former All-Star and a former World Series champion. So this is gonna seem like the intro is gonna be off topic, but it really isn't once you get what I mean. So NCAA football, it came out. And if you're doing a dynasty, you tend to take a team that's not good and you want to build them up. That's the whole fun of it. You don't want to start out as Michigan, Alabama, and just dominate. That's just not fun. And so a team that would come to mind is Rice. And now Rice fits in the Pittsburgh theme because Chris Boswell and Vance McDonald both played for them and were on the same team at the same time. But there's 3 baseball players that were former Rice Owls that fit perfectly in easy, medium, and hard for trivia. So that's what we're going to do. It's going to be similar to the Pirates guessing game we did before. I have 5 guesses. I have 5 hints for you guys. And once I name the 5 hints, you guys both name your player. If you guys want paper and pen or a paper and a pencil, whatever, that would work. But yeah.
Will you tell us the era, like when they played?
For all of these guys, I tell you the era in the hints. So.
Okay.
Yep. So you guys will know. All right. So you guys ready? You guys prepared and everything? All right. So I pretty much
I'm not prepared.
Well, I gave you the hint of it being Rice and them being good players for the most part. So, all right. So do you guys want to start with easy, medium, hard? Any preferences?
Yeah.
Any preferences?
Let's go from easy to hard. Yeah.
Okay. Work your way up. All right. So the first hint for easy. This player led the National League in runs scored in 2014 with 111, and the entire MLB in RBIs in 2019 with 126. You guys need me to repeat any questions, just let me know.
What was how many in what year? So 26 RBIs 2019.
Yep.
And runs scored leader in 2014.
For the National League in 2014, yes.
Okay.
So the second hint is he was drafted 6th overall in 2011 by the Nationals. So if you guys are very good with your draft trivia, that could give it away. But if not, these hints should be helpful.
Who did the Pirates draft in 2011?
Was that
Garrett Cole year?
Garrett Cole, number 1. So for you guys' third hint, he made his MLB debut in 2013 and was in his first All-Star game, his first time being an All-Star in 2019.
In 2011, he was 6th overall. And his first All-Star appearance is 2019?
Correct. He made his MLB debut in 2013. So these next 2 hints could very well give it away. Honestly, they probably do give it away. Number 4, he is a current Angel.
Okay, yeah.
I'll give you the 5th hint just in case you're mixing 2 guys, which I don't think you guys are. But despite playing in his 5th season with the Angels, he has only played 219 games.
I think we're gonna get off the schneid here, Peyton.
Ready? You want to say it at the same time?
Go for
Yeah,
it.
3, 2, 1. Anthony Rendon.
Rendon.
You guys are both
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Well, the Angel, I was a little nervous. And then when you said, because I did have Rendon in my mind because I thought 2019 World Series. But then once he said Angel, I was like, okay, yeah.
Yep.
When he said 2011, I was thinking Rendon because I remember his draft in 2011. I just didn't remember if he was like a first round pick or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6th overall.
So he went to
was good.
Rice.
Yeah, he went to
That's
Rice.
crazy.
A 6th overall at Rice is
6th overall at
wild.
Rice.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, they've had some pretty good guys, but this I think is a pretty good medium, especially since you guys know baseball. I think this would fit very well for medium. So you guys ready for the hints?
Yeah.
All right. The first one is, despite being a longtime Astro in the 2000s, he won his first and only World Series with the Cardinals.
In 06?
He,
What year did it? Oh, 2011.
Yep.
Oh, you're not saying that. Okay.
I didn't want. Yeah, but I mean, yeah. I mean, if he's a longtime Astro in the 2000s, it's going to be the 2011 World Series.
Right. 2000. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind giving you that just because it's kind of given. So
Okay.
so for the second hint is he had two 40+ home run seasons in his career, one in 2002 and one in 2006. So the third hint is he made the World Series for the Astros in 2005, but he lost to the White Sox. He was also an everyday starter and was very good for them.
He's a position player.
Correct. For the fourth hint, he had a 943 career OPS, 31st of all time, as one of the highest OPSs of all time to not be a Hall of Famer. That hasn't been like a steroid user or, Pete Rose. So. And the last one is, he was primarily an outfielder that had his best offensive seasons as a first baseman. And I'll give you a slight hint. Despite being a first baseman a while for the Astros, as a Cardinal, he actually played right field because Albert Pujols was at first whenever they won the World Series. So that's kind of an extra hint there.
What year did he retire?
His last season,
You don't have to say the team.
I'm almost
what
positive, was 2014. 2013, he was hurt for a while. Or not hurt for a while, but he kind of was not the greatest.
31st all time. He played right field for the Cardinals in 2011.
And during the World Series, yeah. He would have DH'd, but there wasn't a DH at the time. And so, I mean, after the Cardinals, he really didn't produce much. Like, he was very good in 2011. Like he had a really good, not bounce back year, but he just had a very good offensive year. And then he kind of tailed off. It was about ready for him to retire.
And he was primarily a first baseman in his career, and then
I'd say so. Yeah,
outfield for the
he
Cardinals.
played outfield to start. Then the Astros, I guess, figured he'd be a better first baseman. So that's kind of the route they went.
Is he a bigger guy?
I'd say so. Not Riley Tellez big, but he's pretty big.
Oh, this is another one of those
943 OPS.
He was a very good hitter in his career. Like,
I'm thinking of players like recently they were like snubs into the Hall of Fame.
just because he was a
a
first baseman, I wouldn't call this guy a snub because his home run totals aren't as high. Like, he didn't hit 500 homers. He didn't even hit 400. So, but he was still a very good hitter. Like, having a 943 OPS, you have to be good for a long time, and that's what he was. So.
the first guy that came to mind, but he retired later than 2014, and I don't think he was a first baseman. Was Carlos Beltran.
I can give
Yeah,
you a slight hint if you guys are really struggling.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, I guess.
One more.
After
I
the
don't think-
Cardinals, he signed with the Rangers.
The Rangers.
Yeah, that's where his
was
career
he-
kind of started to be the beginning of the end because
the
got
Cardinals
injured.
beat the Rangers in the World Series.
Yeah,
and
and
then
then two seasons later, he went to the Rangers. So he was hurt in 2012 pretty much the entire year with the Cardinals.
Did he ever play for the White Sox?
At least not during his prime years. If he landed with them at the end of his career, maybe. I don't think he did, though.
How many career homers?
Don't know the exact number, but it's in between 300 and 399. It's somewhere in the 300s for sure. At least I'm probably here. I'll look it up for you just in case I'm messing up on that one because I don't want to give you guys
right
full.
field. Who the hell play right field?
Yep.
I know.
This guy hit 300. This guy hit 366 homers.
I'm trying to think Astro to Cardinal. I don't. And then Rangers. I don't think I'm gonna. I think I'm cooked here. I think I had a nice, got that easy out of the way.
What was it? Adam. What was his name? I'm trying
Adam
to think.
LaRoche,
What
Adam
Astro?
Dunn.
Because that's what I was thinking. Adam LaRoche, Adam Dunn. There's he was part of that Astros team, like Jeff Bagwell. The other guy is the Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I was
AJ
thinking Jeff
Presen-
Bagwell, but he's not. It's not Jeff Bag. It can't be Jeff Bagwell. He was no.
He's a Hall
No,
of Famer. Bichette.
No, he wasn't a right fielder, first base, or with the Cardinals.
What's his race?
He's a
Black or
Caucasian
white?
male. He's white.
He's giving us way too many hints than we deserve. I think
I
we just.
think it's.
I think we
we
just
got to
throw in the
forfeit.
towel here.
All right, you just spit out a name you guys think, just in case.
I was gonna say Carlos Beltran, but I just know that that's not right. He's not even white. So I don't know. Adam LaRoche.
Yeah, we'll just
I know that ain't right either.
What do you have, Nate?
The Adam LaRoche, maybe no, you're not Adam LaRoche. No. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even think I deserve to guess.
Just say it. What is it?
Just say it.
It is Lance Berkman.
Oh my gosh!
Lance Berkman.
Yeah.
He was that good?
He was a very good player.
No, I didn't know he played for the Cardinals.
Yeah, he was on the 2011 World Series team. He played
I remember
right field.
Lance Berkman.
Hit like 30 homers, batted 300. He was a surprisingly really good player in right field for them. I don't know how he was defensively, but
I actually had no idea he played.
I should have known that. I should have known that because the name that crossed my mind, but I knew he was later was Mark Reynolds.
Oh,
Mark Reynolds was never that good.
No.
Lance Berkman, I should have had that.
Mark Reynolds had a 40 home run season though, at least
with the Diamondbacks,
yeah. But yeah, with the Diamondbacks.
Actually, that would have been a better guess than. I should have had that. Okay. Well, hard is probably going to.
The last one is hard, but honestly, if you guys are better with your recent history, which is kind of a hint here, baseball history, this might actually be easier than Lance Berkman just because it's more of our era of baseball. So, you guys ready for the hard? I just had him as hard because he's not better than the first two. So
okay, I just had a thought of who this next player might be without even knowing who it is. I just had an epiphany, something a name just randomly came into my head. If this is that player, I swear it'll be the funniest thing.
That would be funny. All right, so for the hard, honestly, this first hint, if you really know it, it might give it away. But it shouldn't give it away immediately unless you guys know every single detail about everything. Unless maybe you do, I don't know. But the first hint is that he was actually a former Pirate, but he was sent to the Red Sox in the Hanrahan for Melanson swap.
Ooh. Okay.
He actually did make his debut with the Pirates, but shortly after the offseason, after he was traded in that deal to the Red Sox.
So it was Melanson and this player for Joel, or Hanrahan and this player for Melanson.
I think we traded someone else, but we grabbed Melanson, I think Stomy Pimentel, Ivan De Jesus, and Jerry Sands. Like, it was a weird trade, but it was like,
Okay.
we didn't trade, like, other than Hanrahan, I think we didn't trade too much, and then we got back a lot of players.
Payne, is it the guy you're thinking of?
No, not even close.
Can you let us know who the guy you're thinking of real quick? Just because if it's not, because
It
I
was,
assume it
I
would be.
thought it, this would honestly wouldn't even be that hard. Howie Kendrick.
Oh, no.
I was thinking of
Howie
Howie
Kendrick's
Kendrick
not
this
even.
morning. I was thinking about the Nationals World Series. I was thinking about how Howie Kendrick was like so good for the
No, he
Yeah.
Nationals.
was,
during
yeah.
the
All right, so for the second hint, his first and only All-Star was in 2015.
Wait, so this player, he was traded from the Pirates to the Red Sox, correct?
Yep,
Okay. And he never went back to the Pirates.
correct. So the third hint is that he was on the 2018 World Series Red Sox. While he
Oh,
was
I got it. I
technically a
think.
Red Sox in 2013, he wasn't considered on the team, so he's not credited with the World Series.
What position? Where is he, a position player or a pitcher?
He is a position player. I know 4 is going to give it away for Nate because I think he already knows who it is. But the fourth hint,
Was he a starter like a lot for the White Sox during 2018?
the
Or not
Red
really?
Sox and
Was he
question mark is what that's the answer I'm going to give.
No, in 2018 he was with the Red Sox, you said, right?
Correct. Yep.
And was he a starter? Is what I'm asking.
I'll say
Did he
sure.
play?
I'll say sure. It kind of depended.
Okay, he's kind of like in between. Got it.
So that's pretty much where my fourth hint gives. He's known as a super utility man.
Mm. Oh, wait. One question though. Was he traded? Was he with the Red Sox from 2013 to 2018? Or was
He
there
was with the
in
Red Sox
between that?
after. I don't know exactly when he wasn't anymore, but he played like 90% of his career with the Red Sox.
Did he ever play for the Baltimore Orioles?
I'll look it up now. I don't
I
know on
think
the
because
top of my head.
Payne, you know this.
I think I do.
He did not.
Never played for the Orioles?
This guy did not.
Because I swear the guy I'm thinking of played for the Orioles.
And so for the last hint, he is, as of now, retired. Plays last game in 2021.
For who? Who did he play for in 2021?
He played for Texas.
And what were the years he was with the Red Sox?
You're asking for all these hints, Peyton. No, it's all good.
Bro,
2013 through 2019.
every single year.
Yep.
And from the time he's with the Pirates, then he went to the Red Sox.
So he was only a Pirate the year before 2013, so 2012.
But he came up with the Pirates, is what
Correct.
I'm asking. Is what I'm yeah.
Yep.
Okay, because I swear this guy played for the Orioles that I'm thinking of, but maybe he didn't. And it's the only guy I thought of. And I don't know if he really started. I don't think he. But I think he was a Red Sox. Who's Train? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
I know,
who's
that
Train?
wasn't for me.
That's
Train,
me.
hurry up, Peyton.
That's
Okay,
me.
my guess, because it's past Jake Bell's bedtime. We need to get this moving.
It is
I'm
past my
kidding.
bedtime. I'm an old
It's
man.
way past Jake Bell's bedtime. Okay, I'm gonna say it's Steve Pierce.
Okay.
I'm going to say mine. The Brock star, Brock Holt.
Nate is
Brock
the correct.
Holt!
Nate is the correct
No!
winner. It was Brock Holt. Steve
I
Pierce
should
was
have
an
known
Oriole.
that.
Steve
That was a
Pierce
that was a
actually-
really good guess.
Steve Pierce actually broke out with the Orioles. So you were right. He was an Oriole.
Didn't he play for the Red Sox too?
Yep, but
Yeah,
not that
he-
long.
he-
Only like a year and a half, I think.
He played for
Brock
the
Holt,
2018
you know what's
World
crazy?
Series
You know
team.
what's crazy? When I went to Boston in 2019 and went to a Red Sox game, it was Brock Holt bobblehead night there. I remember it because
wow.
I remember when he was with the Pirates. I love Brock Holt. I was like, why did we trade him?
Well, that was why we got like the
Well,
best closer
Nate
in our.
beat me.
Yeah, we got the best closer
least-
in our team's history from him. So, in my
At
opinion,
least I had somewhat of a good guess. At least I had somewhat
Yeah.
of a good guess.
yeah,
But
it was a
Brock
good. It
Holt
was a good battle
completely
for
slipped
sure.
my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I when you said he was the 2015 All-Star, and then I didn't remember what year he was an All-Star.
I should have taken that into account. Steve Pierce was never an All-Star, I don't think.
Yeah, and then
Maybe
I was
he
like
was.
2018 World Series champ, and then when you said super utility guy, I like knew 100%.
Yeah, I knew like once you said, "Oh, I know," I'm like, "Yeah, that's gonna go the way." Like once I said super utility, yeah.
See, I didn't look at this. I forgot the super utility. I didn't write all this stuff down, man. Nate wins.
Yeah.
Nate redemption.
It was a good battle.
a battle of mediocrity, of sheer mediocrity.
9-8, 9-8, 9-8.
Winning record though.
Well, so that'll do it for our episode of the We Are Family podcast. And hopefully we maybe get some of these trade deadline acquisitions correct. Go ahead, put your some of your guesses in the comments. A couple of quick announcements. I plan on probably by the time this episode's up, making a Twitter account for the We Are Family podcast. I'll put what our tag is in the comments. We're gonna have a Twitter, and then another big announcement. Nate and I, Jake's gonna join us for a little bit, but Nate and I are gonna mainly be doing this. We're going to have a trade deadline, MLB trade deadline. I think we're going to schedule it for 1 to 4. MLB trade deadline live stream. We're going to have some special guests. We're from Point Park. You know, maybe some other guests. So I would definitely tune into that and comment while we're live on July 30th from 1 to 4. So yeah, let's go Bucks. Let's keep this thing rolling. Keep the summer rolling. Let's go Bucks. Anything you guys have to add?
Go Bucks.
No, summed it up. Let's go Bucks.
We Are Family podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great week.